Good morning. It's Elisa James, voice and presentation coach. And as usual, I'm coming to you here live on Fridays inside Facebook, Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club, and also inside YouTube at the Voice of Confidence TV. Now, every Friday, as you know, if you've been watching these live casts, I come on live with a brand new guest to talk about their business and how they help people. Now, if you know me, and you must know me a little bit by now, I'm all about transformation. And many of my clients come to me with ostensibly a speaking problem or a voice issue of some sort. That could be a serious pathological voice issue like nodules or muscle tension dysphonia or aphasia or something very big that's really interfering with their lives. As a healer, I deal with that. But on the other side, most of the time, it's just because they have trouble being seen and being heard. Now, when we really dig deep and peel away all the onion layers, there's always something going on beneath the surface. There's always some sort of psychology behind the sound that's actually interfering with the way that they speak or sing or act. It's some sort of blockage. So I work with these blockages all the time. Now, I don't advertise that, but it's a very big part of what I do. And that's why what I do with voice is really unleashing that inner voice, that power that's available within us to step into our highest and best self. Now, today I'm super excited because today it's really going to help all of my students and all of my fans around the world who watch this because they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, and they don't feel safe when they're sharing their voice. And that could be because of a wound or a trigger that's allowing you to stay shut down. So today, my wonderful guest is transformational coach and energy healer, Jennifer Lee. Please welcome her to the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, very privileged and very excited and a little bit of fear coming through.
And that's okay. That's what happens when somebody points a camera in your face. Yeah. But all is well. So look, I've got a few questions for you, Jen, and we've both done the Aaron Sensoni 4-day training, which was absolutely freaking awesome. And I love this question that he asks us. Because when somebody asks us a question about what business are we in, what do you do, we always say, I do this, and we put a label on ourselves. I used to say, I'm a singer. I'm just a singer. That's actually what I said. I'm just a singer, right? Dismissive of myself. Now I realize that, as a coach, as a speaking coach, you could say, I'm a speaking coach, but is that really the truth? We both know that what I do is so much more than that. So let me ask you the same question. What business are you really in?
And as you know, it's been a very confusing time for me too, because what business am I in? I would just say I'm an energy healer, and people would just look at me going, okay, great. And they'd walk away.
Yeah.
So I had to really think about what I've done for myself and what I have been doing for my clients. And what I came up with is that I help people eliminate triggers for good to accelerate personal growth without reverting back to the same old patterns, even if they're not a believer.
Ooh, I like the last sentence. That is super cool.
It's very cool. So, and I have proven it time and time again that you do not need to be a believer in what I do to receive the benefits.
I love that. It's almost like what I say to my clients is just follow the process. Trust the process.
Exactly.
And when you get halfway through any sort of program, it can bring up a lot of fears, a lot of triggers, a lot of blockages, and that can stop people from moving forward. So if we really coach our clients in trusting the process that it will work and unfold over time, then that's going to be the solution there, whether we believe it or not. I've got a great story I want to share with everybody later on. So remind me of that. This is my little reminder for you.
Sure.
So what if you could say, I know that you've probably had an interesting journey to get where you were. When you were younger, did you know that you would end up here?
Hell no.
Yeah, good answer.
I mean, when I was 8 years old, when I was asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a computer technician.
Wow.
So I'm far from, and although I do work in IT full time at the moment, yeah, it's a very, very
Huge
different
difference.
side of the fence. Yeah, yeah, it's not
Absolutely.
something.
So I know that we all have amazing journeys to get to where we are, but when you got here and you decided this is what you wanted to do, this is your jam, what was it? What's the passion that you had that drew you here? Because we all mostly know what makes us tick and what makes us show up to work every day. There's got to be something inside. Otherwise, why the hell would you do it every
Yes.
single day? So what's your passion in life and business that drew you here?
So I'm solution focused. So if somebody has a problem, I will find a way to resolve that issue. So if that means more research, and I'll explain what I mean, is that I have a potential client who, and I'm not sure what the word of the actual medical problem is, but his sperm does not transport from his testicles through to his urethra out, and so the sperm doesn't go out. So
Wow.
I've gone and researched what that means and what that from a technical perspective, I've looked at how that is supposed to work. And so what I will do is I will ask, and I'll check to see what is actually causing those blockages and preventing that from preventing the sperm from traveling to where you want it to go in order to conceive.
Wow, that sounds like some sort of computer technician, but in a very different way. Because you're talking about problem solving and you're talking about engineering to a certain degree, and you're talking about the way that the mechanics of the body is actually working. I work with the mechanics too, but you work with mechanics from a different holistic healing perspective and a spiritual perspective, but you still work with the mechanics, and I've seen that happen before. That's incredible.
Correct. So I essentially reverse engineer. I like to say I've reverse engineered my whole life.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And when you're talking about that sort of stuff, now let me just ask you this quick question, and we're going to relate it to triggers, because this is a very big thing for a lot of people. When you're helping people, do you see and hear their triggers straight away, or is it manifest as a problem? Like, what's your superpower to try to really nut down what's going on really? Like, really?
It's funny you say my superpower. So I recently worked with someone who had headaches and migraines, and as we were going through, and I have a conversation with, I like to say that I have a three-way conversation. So we have a group conversation. I speak to you consciously and I speak to you subconsciously. So what you may be saying consciously may not be what you're saying subconsciously. So we have a conversation, and I will ask you questions, and we'll bring some stuff to the surface that you may not be aware of, but what your subconscious is very aware of. So what I do is I ask those questions, and it's always the quality of the questions that we ask. Tony Robbins says that it's about the quality of the questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So questioning is what brings the answers, the right answers, or the root cause of what's going on with that person.
And
so I'm not
sure. I think, yes, no, that's so true, because when you think about it, Jen actually helped me with a question that I had for myself. It was a question I didn't even know that I had. So the questioning really actually helped me get to what the root of the problem was. So just let me get you a little overview of what was going on, because I didn't know what was going on until, Jen helped me through this. A few weeks ago, I was struggling with something and I didn't know what it was, and I couldn't put a finger on it. I was just working very, very hard and probably ignoring it, right? As I do. Too busy. Go away. Right? As we do sometimes. We stack it over here, to deal with it later, but that's the problem. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger until something explodes, or it manifests as the physical issue. right? When it manifested as a physical issue, I was getting a sore throat. Now, I'm a voice coach. I know what I'm doing, and I know when I'm abusing my voice or doing something wrong. I know exactly from the feeling and the sound that I'm going to get. Things will start to pack it in, so to speak. But it was nothing to do with that. And I've also had throat chakra issues in the past when it came up with communication, where I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel respected. I didn't feel valued. And I knew that this was not the case, because I'm now in a relationship that is the opposite of everything I've ever been in. Mm-hmm. Amazingly. Now, I started to get a sore throat for no reason. It's like, what the hell is going on? Why would I have a sore throat? I'm not sick. I'm not abusing my voice, and I can speak freely in this relationship. So what the hell is actually going on? So Jen and I were supposed to have a session that day, and I said to Jen, I've got a really sore throat. I'm a bit worried about it. I need a break. Can we skip over? And she said, let me tune in. It's like, okay. And at this point, I didn't really know what she did. I really didn't completely understand, and I was a little bit skeptical. And I thought, okay, let's just go with the flow here, because I've worked with energy before. I've worked with chakras. I have an understanding of a little bit of it, but I've never really dived deep into it. She said, no, just go and meditate and rest, and then I'm going to work on you for a couple of hours and we'll see what happens. I figured out by asking myself deep questions what the hell was really going on, because I sat with it. I didn't push it aside. Jen gave me that hour that I normally wouldn't have had, because I would have been coaching all day and then fallen into bed exhausted. But it gave me that little freedom to sit down and do a meditation and then really ask myself deep questions about what the hell was going on. At the same time, she was doing a chakra balancing healing for me. And then within the hour, maybe two, the pain was gone. No joke. The pain was literally gone. And she also said that it was probably a thyroid issue. Now, when I dug deep into my own psyche and my subconscious and realized, that the thyroid, no joke, guys, is around the vocal folds. There's a reason for this. It's not on our wrist. It's not on our pinky. It's on our vocal folds that vibrate all day long. So it's got to do with vibration. It's got to do with communication and expression. So that gives you a little understanding of what she actually does. What business are you really in? It is hard to articulate, isn't it? But that's Jen's superpower, like being able to see, feel, and understand intuitively what's going on in somebody's body, what their triggers are because of that issue. For mine is shut down or get angry. I'm triggered, but then I didn't know why. It was stupid. Right? You angry and upset for no reason, supposedly, until you really start to dig deep. But Jen saw through all that very, very quickly. So I would say that is your absolute superpower.
Yeah, well, what I was actually alluding to was the client I was working with. Like I said, she had headaches, and she said, as I was releasing, and it was from the age of 9, so the subconscious knows numbers, so I bring up ages at what something might have occurred, and for her it was around age 9, and I check with, I ask sort of, between 1 and 10, 10 being the most excruciating pain, 1 being not very painful at all, and she went from an 8 down to a 1 within about 20 minutes, and she says, are you doing something? And I'm like, yes, I am. And she says, oh my goodness, you're a mind reader. And I just went, oh, my mum, finally, I'm a mind reader. So maybe that is my superpower as to what's what's going on. So,
but you're right, people don't have to really understand it. Let's face it, if we're having an operation, my dad went through quadruple bypass surgery. Does he really ask the doctor 1,000 questions on what he's going to do every single step of the way? No. We trust the process. We trust the doctors. We trust the people that are looking after us. We don't understand the neurological pathway that Panadol works upon and need to know exactly what process happens to eliminate those pain receptors, the response to pain. We don't need to know. We trust the process. So it's interesting how we're so superstitious about some things, but we're not about others. I don't ask how the electricity works every day. That would do my head in. I don't ask how this magically is going out to 4 different platforms you know, and thousands of people can see it all at once in different countries around the world. It's like, what? Can you imagine trying to explain that to somebody 100 years ago? But
Yep, and
we just trust.
And I have a client now who has been on medication for a long time and said to me, she goes, for the first time in my life, I didn't have to take this medication. And that's just amazing to hear.
Wow.
And I'm no doctor, and I cannot say, and I will never tell you, you can't take medication or you shouldn't be taking that or anything like that. That was up to her, that she decided that she didn't need it anymore.
Wow, that is huge. That is absolutely huge. So this is very, very important work that you do. So in this scenario here, when people are dealing with, you know, physical manifestations, they're dealing with big psychological problems maybe, what sort of people gravitate to you from that space? Like, what sort of clients do you work with on a regular basis?
So I work with all types of clients at the moment. I feel like people gravitate to me when they've tried everything, or they feel like they've tried everything. They've gone through acupuncture, they've gone through health practitioners, they've gone and done various forms of, you know, health people, and I'm sort of like the alternative to what society says is going to help you feel better. So I have people who are in relationships that are stuck. They're stuck. They don't know whether they want to leave or they want to stay. I have people who have brain aneurysms. I have brain damage. People who are trying to conceive. People that just I have somebody who wants to be able to read. And when I say that, and this is something that's close to me, is that even when I would want to read, I would say I'd hate reading, or I dislike reading, or I just don't have time for reading. And what I discovered in my journey is that I attached some trauma to reading. So anytime I would read a word, it would blur out, or I'd, you know, take 20 times to read that page. And I think most people I've spoken to sort of relate. And, you know, as children, we create stories, as you know, and it could be just one moment, you know, something happened and you got frightened while you were just in a place, quiet, trying to read, and then you've attached trauma to that moment, and therefore stacks to a point where you don't feel like reading, or that's exactly right.
Well, exactly. And I always bring that up with clients too. You know, I'm a no BS coach, and I'm sure that you are too, because sometimes we have to be that for the people that are paying us. They're turning up for transformation of some kind. And when people say to me, I hate public speaking, I don't need to do it, or I don't need to, I hate singing. It's like, I don't need to sing. It's like, there's a huge blockage here. Because singing and speaking is so natural. It's a natural part of who we are. It's been around for as long as humans have been around. Drumming and singing and dancing and self-expression. That self-expression is extremely important to our health and happiness, our balance. So why on earth would you not want to sing and express yourself freely and be that picture that I have in my brain of the little girl dancing in the rain in the park, you know, having a good time? When we see that, that's sometimes scary for people because they don't feel like that.
That's because we've attached some sort of negative connotation to it. A trigger is a reminder of a past trauma.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That could be, you know, and that causes many negative emotions. It could be overwhelming, sadness, anxiety, panic,
anger,
conflict, you know, failure, all those types of negative. And if you've attached that one moment, that triggers you for the current situation, and you're not triggered by that current situation. You're triggered by that past trauma experience that is now coming up. You've now put yourself out of your comfort zone. And I always say, you don't know what you don't know until you know, and you don't know you're going to be triggered until you get triggered.
Yep.
So and that's the unknown between the conscious and the subconscious, because our subconscious is like a computer, going back to computer technician, is like a computer. It records everything that we've said, felt, experience, and it sits there and will sit there until it's activated by a new situation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So let's hear a client transformation story of how you've actually helped them eliminate one trigger forever, whatever that was. So for instance, a lady with a headache, I don't know if you want to use that example. Was there something that was triggering that, or do you have another story that you could share so you could really show us the journey?
My favorite story is actually about my dad. So throughout this journey, I've been working on my parents, and they haven't done any personal development. They've done no coaching or anything like this, and they didn't understand what I did. And for a while there, I was continuing to work on them and speak to them and work on them. And one day, my dad calls me and he says, "I've got gout on my big toe." Now, gout is like inflammation around the joint, and what I've discovered, and can be any form, that it's a lot of trapped negative energies, but more specifically, this was trauma. Now, if you speak to him, he's fine. No, there's nothing wrong. I have no idea. There's absolutely nothing wrong. I'm good. And I'm like, okay. So as I'm asking questions, yes, men. And he's 63. And as I'm working with him, I'm going through the questions, and I'm like, oh, it's trauma from like a childhood. It's like, okay. And I'm like, how are you feeling right now? And he's like, oh, it's still about the same. I'm like, okay. So I continue to ask the questions, and I release a few more things, and and I'm saying, how about now? And he's like, silence. And I'm like, are you there? And my mum starts to giggle in the background, because my mum's, of course, with him. And I'm like, what's going on? Is everything okay? And he's like, I've just kicked the table with my toe because it no longer hurts. He says, I couldn't even put it under the sheet in bed last night. It was that painful. And right a couple minutes, 5 minutes later, he's kicking the table with his toe. So the pain was gone. He hasn't had gout since then, and I think that was around October last year. I did that with him. And so they weren't a believer before, but after that moment, they became a believer. And my dad now has a nickname for me. He calls me Mystic Meg.
Oh, that's so gorgeous! I love it, Mystic Meg. Oh, it could be a brand new business. You need the little hat with all the coins and stuff like that, and the crystal ball.
Yes, pretty much. I had to Google what Mystic Meg was, but yeah. So yes, that's pretty much my favorite story, because going from my parents who haven't done any of this kind of stuff understood what I did, and then with that moment changed the way they felt and believed in what I do. So
yeah, and that's fantastic.
Results don't lie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Results absolutely do not lie. But the interesting thing is that we sometimes don't know. People who are watching here today, they might not even understand what a trigger is. They might not. I mean, it's been in my world for so long. I would think that everybody would understand, but some people may not. And when you get triggered, it's like a little wound. I remember talking about it as a wound before the word trigger was a little bit, more hot and happy. But with a wound, when you have a wound that's not healed, any time that something happens that was like a tiny little reminder of something that happened in the past, your amygdala would immediately kick into play for you and then shut you down or make you react in a certain way to protect yourself from harm. That's when, for instance, I can't think of a situation, but people with fear of public speaking, if they were when they were 15, they were standing in front of the entire school assembly and they had to sing Australia's national anthem, and then they sang it really, really badly and everybody snickered and laughed and booed or whatever. That memory would shut them down so quickly because of the trauma attached to that memory, that every single time moving forward, that that panic of the public humiliation would be triggered again. And that little wound would be scratched at and start to pus. That's the way that I used to look at it. And it's just a trigger. So whenever we're triggered, it's just the amygdala kicking in for us, trying to protect us from a situation that happened a very long time ago. But as Jen is saying, it manifests over time as a physical manifestation in the body. Not maybe immediately, but over time it absolutely does. So you've got to really dig deep and get rid of everything.
So I say time doesn't heal. You learn to live with those emotions, those negative emotions, because trauma doesn't necessarily mean physical trauma. It's just a negative emotion that you've created.
Absolutely.
And the negative emotion that's been created is based on the belief that you've created for that specific time. And you create beliefs on every situation that's the subconscious creates to protect you from feeling that pain or that discomfort going forward. And so by doing that, what I say creates a spider web of conflicts. So when you actually want to do that thing you've always wanted to do, you feel that stuckness and you don't progress because you're still back to wherever you created that belief or you created that trauma, and you are still stuck there instead of, 20 years later and being able to do what you really want to do.
Yeah. So true. So look, Jen can help you with any of this stuff. If this is something that you're stuck with, if there's something in your life where you have these triggers coming up, they're physical, they're emotional, it's stopping you from moving forward, then call Jen. This is how you contact her. This is her website. And she's also easy to find on Facebook, Jennifer Lee. Just look her up. If you guys are watching this in the Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club, we have loads of wonderful people inside that group. And there's lots of healers, but this is quite unique. This is why Uniquely Healing is a really great name for Jen, because what she does is literally quite unique. So you'll see this in Facebook in the Find Your Voice Aspiring Speakers Club. If you have any questions for Jen, she's inside that group too. So simply post a little comment underneath the video that you see, put #replay. If you've watched the replay, then please just feel free to ask Jen any questions that might come up for you. And the same thing, guys, if you're watching this in YouTube, this is streaming live right now. If you have any questions for Jen before we close down, make sure that you put that underneath the chat, underneath the video. And then also later on, I will see that in the YouTube comments, even if you're watching the replay of this live video. Now, one of our classmates has actually asked a question, because he's seen us in class together, but it's to do with presentation practice. So yes, Nick, thank you so much for tuning in. Go and practice inside our private closed Facebook group. This is not a practice session. This is an interview. So it's a little bit of a different situation, but I would love to have an interview with you as well later on. So I allow all of my students to, after they're finished training with me, to make sure that they come and share their expertise with the world, because that's what it's all about. We're here as trainers, coaches, healers. We're here to leave our legacy and make the world a better place. So we're here to share our message with the world. If you would like to be a speaker on the Experts Interview Fridays, please just PM me below, and I'll make sure that my assistant Ice gives you the details on how to book in. I'd love to have you as my guest. So if you've got something to share with the world, if you've got an expertise that you'd like to share, please just give us a PM. You can see this in YouTube under the Voice of Confidence TV on my YouTube channel, and you can find Jen at uniquelyhealing.com. Hope you found that helpful. I would love to hear back from you guys. Just pop underneath if you have any questions or comments. We've got, who is this? Very good, informative. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Alicia, for tuning in. And I think Clive is here too. Well done, Jen. Yay! And then Nick is watching. So we've got some classmates watching, which is fantastic. So guys, you got, yeah.
Elisa, I'd love to say thank you for this opportunity, because, as you know, 6 months, or I don't know how long I've been working with you for now, 6 months. 6 months ago, I would never have been able to do this. And with Elisa's help, and also with my work that I do on myself, that has gone from crying on a video just alone. I'm not sharing the video. I'm doing the video with myself, crying my eyes out in so much fear to getting to this point and being able to do this live. So
yay! That's what I live for.
very
That's what I live for. Thank you so much for telling me that. That is super, super, super important. This, guys, shows you that no matter how big your fear is, no matter how big your trigger is, you can get past it. You can. I've had the same sort of issues, Jen, and I've gotten past it. And we show up, we move on, and then we help other people do the same. So thank you so much for being in this world, and thank you so much for the work that you do. You're here for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, you have a wonderful day. We've got one more comment. Let's have a look just before we finish up. Who is it? Can you read that, Jen?
Can you help with muscular
dystrophy? Muscular dystrophy clients.
I don't know what that is, but I certainly will research it, and I have no doubt that I can help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. You have a wonderful day. Everybody have a wonderful day here on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.